Hey, everybody. This is Dr. Dave Nelson, the director of the Scotland program and the person teaching the history courses for both sessions. Hopefully, you've seen some of these videos already. I wanted to go ahead and record a quick one, relatively quick one, just to kind of give you some updates on what you need to be doing at this point. I've seen a couple emails come through either to me or to Cassie that's been forwarded to me. And some of the questions made me realize, okay, I do need to do a little bit of an update because we're not actually going to see each other for another couple of weeks. I'm recording this on Tuesday, the 25th of April, even though you might be watching this later. This is the day where you're really supposed to be your final payments due today. I know a couple of people got extensions, but essentially this is when the payments are due. So I just wanted to kind of go through a couple of quick things of what you need to be doing now before we even meet for orientation. And some of this is going to deal also with those of you who are staying longer, either coming over early or staying after the fact. I did want to talk a little bit about how to rent rooms and things like that. So at a certain point, some of you may not want to stay on. You may want to hit stop after a certain point if it doesn't apply to you. But for right now, it does apply to everybody in both sessions. So whether you're in session 1, which obviously is the one that's only about 3 weeks away, actually almost a month away, not quite. And then session 2, which is about 5 weeks away. And of course, we're all going to meet Macon. I believe it's the 13th of May. I think it's the 13th of May, that Saturday. So again, what I also want to kind of recommend, I know not everybody's on Facebook and people can get funny about Facebook. We will have kind of some kind of communication system. I may wait to orientation to see which ones you guys prefer, but I know we've done GroupMe and we've done WhatsApp, and there's been various forms we've used. There's a whole bunch of these little things that we can communicate while we're over there. Plus, I'll have a phone. I'll give you my number. We'll talk, so that would be how we communicate on site for those of you who will have phones. But until then, I did create 2 groups on Facebook. There's one for session 1, which is, as you can see, I just literally copied and pasted this about 20 minutes ago. So again, I think about half the students are on it. And then session 2, which actually I think there's only 3 students on it. I think 2 of those people are the faculty. And I there may be a couple of parents on these at the moment. I am going to go through in a week or 2 and start taking out anybody who's not specifically in the program, because I do want it to be a closed group for privacy reasons. Because a lot of times people don't want other people knowing what they're up to, whether it's parents or spouses or whoever. Anyway, so I would recommend, if you can, go ahead and if you're not against Facebook, go ahead and join these. You can just search for this. Or you can send me, you can email me and I can send you a link directly. But it is so I do put a few things up there. I do put links to videos. Like this video, some of you may be watching it through the Facebook group. But as we get going, it'll also be a great way for us to share photos and things like that. And I know most people use things more like TikTok and Instagram and some other forms, but this one still works. It's a little bit easier, I think, to share photos and stuff, especially if you're sharing lots and lots of photos at one time. Anyway, I can't make you go on it, but I would really encourage you, because it is a nice, easy way for us to communicate before we go over other than emails. So anyway, for everybody, things that you need to be either have done by now or almost done with by now. And again, I'm recording this on Tuesday, the 25th of April. So I almost don't want to talk about this, because if you don't have this by now, I'm very worried. You really need to hopefully you have your US passport by this point. If you don't have it in hand, hopefully it's on the way, because there is a huge backlog of passports. Even under good circumstances, they can take a while. So hopefully you do have your passport, because game over if you don't have a passport, because you can't even get on the plane without a passport. It has nothing to do with me or the program. That is all about the American government and the British government. So hopefully you already have your passport and you're ready to go on that. If not, there are ways, by the way, you can sometimes go right to the passport office in Atlanta or down in Miami and pay a bunch of money. Sometimes you can get it same day, but it's not fun. Okay. The big one, and this is one I've got some emails on. I know the other day, I think Cassie got an email from somebody saying, do I book flights now? And of course we were both like, yes, absolutely. So yes, you do need to have your flight booked, especially session 1. You need to get that done. And even session 2, even though it's still 5 weeks away. Yeah, because there's not that many flights, and I did a whole YouTube video about how to buy flights. And I think I put that up a couple weeks ago. I can resend it to people if they need it. And a lot of you, I don't think even needed it. You know how to do this already, but I know some of you, this is your first time getting a flight. You know, in the past, we used to do a group flight. We charged more. We used to charge about $2,900, but it included the group flight. I'm glad we didn't do that this year, although I miss having the group flight because we would have had to go back and go, actually about 3,300, because as many of you have discovered, group flights are getting expensive this year. So if you haven't, you need to do it ASAP. Like if you're in session 1, you haven't done it yet, second, stop the video, buy your flight. Because there's not that many flights. And as you get closer and closer and closer, I mean, sometimes flights sell out. I mean, there's no more flights. There's no more seats on the plane. And again, as those seats get more scarce, the prices go up. And so again, I don't know. I haven't looked at flights. I bought mine already, so I haven't looked in the last couple of weeks. But if they do run out of flights, you may have to fly over a day early. So which means the rest of this video might be kind of important to you. Anyway, so make sure if you haven't booked your flight already, especially session 1, because you're only a couple of weeks away, you absolutely need to book your flight. And really session 2 needs to as well at this point, because again, they're just going to get more expensive the longer you go. That's just a sign up. Just realized I left out a word there. I'm trying to do this really quick. So sign up for your courses, and you do that at your college. I know this process has always been a little bit confusing, and it changes every year, but it's always been a little bit weird because it's a bunch of colleges all over the state, all joining together. You guys are from all over, even the faculty. I'm from ABAC down at Bainbridge. We got Dr. Moose from Middle Georgia. We got Dr. Simmons Moore from West Georgia. So we're from all over. So it is complicated. You got a lot of paperwork you got to fill out. You pay money to Cassie, and then you tell Cassie which classes you're taking. But at the same time, you also actually have to sign up for your courses at your college. And that's between you and your advisor and also the representative at your college. Usually it's the study abroad person, the International Education Office. And if you don't know who that is, Cassie can tell you who that person is. They have to actually create the class for you and then put it on the schedule. Because they don't, because these classes are listed only for you. We don't want everybody else taking them. They're only for you. So every college offers their own version of the course. So again, in addition to telling Cassie which courses you're taking, you also have to literally sign up at your college. So make sure some may not have those courses created yet, but most of them do by this point. So again, make sure that you are contacting your advisor, contacting your international ed rep and Cassie, because she coordinates with them to make sure that you are signed up for the courses. If you haven't done that yet, you're not in big trouble, but you do need to have that done. That is one of the requirements before you're allowed to go over, is you have to actually be an enrolled student, which means you have to be enrolled at your college. So, and then you pay tuition at your college for those courses because you're getting college credit. And that gives you access to the online component as well, because we do have we call it Georgia View at my college. Other people call it different things, but D2L essentially. And we do use that. And so to be enrolled in that, you have to actually sign up for your courses. And so really that's the main thing for everybody, is have your passport by now, have your flight booked or book it ASAP, and then work on signing up for your courses at your college. And again, I know some of you have already done that. So if you're just flying over on that, arriving on that Sunday and you're flying home on that Friday, you're fine. You can go ahead and say stop. But if you're planning to do some travel on your own, whether you're coming over a couple of days early, which I know a lot of you are, I think we're having more this year do that than we've ever had. And I know a lot of you are planning to stay a couple of days or even weeks later. Or if you're planning on doing something on the weekend outside of Edinburgh. So obviously we have your rooms booked for the whole 2 weeks. So if you're not going anywhere on the weekend, you're fine. But if you're planning to go to London or York or Ireland and especially if you're spending the night somewhere, you do need to book those. And somebody did ask that is out of your pocket. That's not part of the program. So if you're going to London, that's, because somebody asked, yes, that you have to pay for that because that's your trip. So we're at a point now where you do need to go ahead and start booking rooms and even booking train tickets and things like that. Train tickets aren't quite as big of a problem. You can get those even once you get in Scotland. That's not usually a problem. The London tickets will fill up quicker, but if you're going to York or going somewhere in Scotland, you can buy those in Scotland. I'm not too worried about that. Mostly, I am concerned about students that are coming over early or staying later. If you haven't booked a room yet or a place to stay, you do need to do that soon, because they run out and they get more and more expensive. It's already expensive to stay in hotels in Britain anyway, because space is a premium there. They do tend to be more expensive than here already. And then as you get closer to the date, especially in summer, they get more and more and more expensive. So it is something you do need to be working on. And that's really kind of what the rest of this is going to be about. One last thing, and I forgot I had a fifth one until just now. So if those who have hit stop, they won't get this, but I'll tell them again another time. One thing you need to be starting to think about, and I'll mention this at orientation, you do have time to do this, but it's not bad to go ahead and start contacting your phone company, for your cell phone if you're bringing it, see what kind of plans they can do. Will it work over there? It is easier now to use your smartphone in Britain than it used to be. It used to be really difficult, but you still need to contact them, see what your options are. Contact your bank, let them know you're going to be in another country, give them the dates so your ATM card works, and your credit card company. In fact, my wife and I literally just had to get a new credit card. We're still waiting on it because there was some fraud happened, and but sometimes what happens when you go to another country is you use your credit card once, it works, and you use it again, and then your credit card company goes up. Well, I don't know what this is. This person lives in Georgia and I'm getting charges in Scotland. We're going to stop the credit card. So if you let your bank know, you let your credit card company know that you will be in Scotland for 2 weeks, then they won't, so that's just something you or your parents do need to be working on. You don't have to do it today, but it is something you do need to do before you leave. And it's that's those little things that people don't think about till they get over there and go, oh, I didn't contact my bank. Now my credit card doesn't work. My ATM card doesn't work. So, okay. So that's something just keep in your mind and maybe be working on now. Now, this is only for those who are traveling on their own before or after the program at this point. And this is just really about booking rooms, booking a place to stay. And I have had a couple of people email me this. I know one person emailed me last week and I never quite got back with them. So this is me getting back with them. Okay. So if you're going to be staying in Edinburgh or somewhere else, I'm going to focus on Edinburgh in this, but you may want to be thinking about other places. I know we got a couple of people because of their flights. It was cheaper for them to stay a couple extra days and then fly home. A couple of people are flying a couple of days early, and then So if you're booking a hotel or someplace in Edinburgh, there are things you do need to be thinking about. First off, before I even get through this, staying in another city sometimes can be a cheap option, especially if you're comfortable doing that. London's going to be a more expensive option. And I do know some of you are flying into London and staying there. This won't really, the basic info I'm giving you will help you with London, but I don't have details about London. That's kind of a whole nother beast. Glasgow sometimes is a cheaper option. It's about an hour away by train. I mean, it is a little more complicated because you got to get on a train and, get from a train station to your hotel. And but sometimes it can be a little bit cheaper option. But from this point on, I'm just going to talk about Edinburgh. So if you're going to book in Edinburgh, again, whether it's a couple of days early or a couple of days after the fact, location does matter. Edinburgh is a very safe city, and it's not a huge city, but there are areas that are nicer than others. Crime is not a major problem, but there are some bad areas. But more than that, it's just you may book a hotel that's a long way away from where you need to be, and that can be a real problem. So a couple of things to think about. So and I'll give you actual examples in just a moment from websites, but usually when you do a search on a website for a place, you can you can filter it to only certain parts of town. So what we would call downtown in Britain, they always refer to as city center. So London city center or Edinburgh city center. That just means like the hub, the place where everybody is. So Edinburgh city center will kind of get you all the good places to stay. But there's also, but more specifically, there's areas known as Newtown and Old Town. We're staying in Newtown. Old Town these are basically where everybody stays, Newtown or Old Town. They're right next to each other. Old Town is the original Edinburgh. That's where all the cool stuff is. Newtown is 1700s new, so it's still old. And again, that's actually where we're staying in the hostel. They're right next to each other. That's really where most of the hotels are going to be. Sometimes they use the term Royal Mile. That's actually Old Town. And both Old Town and New Town are Edinburgh City Center. Edinburgh City Center is Old Town and New Town. I have it still in the parentheses, but I shouldn't have done that. But the other option for a couple of you, I know there's at least one student that's staying just one extra day till that Saturday, just because they had cheaper flights. I would actually recommend just staying at the airport. There's several hotels right at the airport. It's really easy to get to. I mean, they're literally right there. And, you can still go into Edinburgh. They have buses and trams going in 30 minutes away. So again, that's usually kind of a nice, easy option if you're just staying one night. Is just stay at the airport, take a taxi or a bus into town if you want to explore a little bit more and go back to the airport. And then you're right there ready to fly out. Okay, so location, and I'll show you some maps in just a moment. So you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Another thing, this is kind of a weird, the phrase en suite. We don't usually use this in America, but it's very common throughout Britain and actually Europe. It basically means bathroom in your hotel room. So most hotels will have a bathroom in the hotel room, just like they do here. But there are still some old hotels where the bathroom is down the hall. Or if you're renting maybe just a room, and again, the bathroom may be down the hall where you're sharing it with other guests. So always look for the phrase en suite. And again, that literally just means in the suite, in the bedroom. And it's referring to what they call the toilet or lavatory, the water closet, the bathroom. Again, 99% of hotels are going to have bathrooms in the room, but there are still some that don't. So always look for that, unless you don't have a problem. I have a problem with it, but many people won't. Again, just like when always, look at check-in times, because sometimes you can't check in until late in the day. Like the hostel we're staying at, we actually can't check in until about 3:00. If check-in times are really late in the day, especially if you're leaving the hostel that morning, I think checkout time is 10 a.m. from the hostel, and maybe check-in time's not till 3:00. You need to make sure you have a place to store your luggage. The hostel usually lets you store luggage for a little while. But hotels sometimes will. You might have to pay £1. Just be thinking about that. Mostly it's the check-in time that's really the more important one. What's the earliest you can check in? Just be thinking about that. And if it's really late, just ask if you can store luggage there. When you're looking up, make sure, sometimes it's listed in US dollars, sometimes it's listed in pounds. Just make sure you're paying attention to that so you're not going, oh, 80 pounds. And not thinking like, oh, that's $100. So for budget reasons, just make sure you're aware of the money. Again, if you're booking a hotel a little ways away, make sure there's good transportation between the hotel and where you need to be, especially if you're trying to get to a flight. Just be thinking about that. Security is something I always think about. I'll talk about that more in a second. And the other thing is some of the terminology is slightly different than what we would use. So a twin room means literally 2 single beds. So like if you're booking with somebody else, that's what twin means. A single literally just means 1 bed. And they're not going to be big giant king beds. Usually they're going to be very simple. And a private room means, this is more about hostels and guest houses. That literally means it's your room. Because a lot of times you'll go to, especially like a guest house or a hostel, and you're like, oh gosh, £30, that's cheap. And then you get there and you're like, oh, I literally just have a bed in a room with 5 other people. I didn't realize this was not a private room. So where we're staying at the hostel, you have private rooms. Now there are 2 people in the rooms because it's you and a roommate, but they are private rooms and they are en suite. But if you're booking yourself, just make sure that you're aware of what you're booking and stuff. So real basic stuff, but you may not, some of this terminology we don't tend to use over here. So types of lodging, obviously hotels be the main one. They tend to be the more expensive option, but they're usually the main ones you're going to want to use. These are a couple of the main companies, and these are in Edinburgh. Holiday Inn, Travelodge are really common. Ibis is a really common one. They're all pretty reasonable. There's a lot of independent ones as well. And most of them are right there near where we're staying at the hostel, so, and again, same with London as well. They have the same companies. So this is one on Royal Mile. Ibis, I actually know where this one is. This is in the Old Town. It's a nice, safe place. And again, at the airport, there's Ibises, there's Holiday Inns right there at the airport. They do have little trams that take you from the airport to the hotel, but they're actually literally walking distance. They're right there. And so again, if you just need one night, that may not be a bad option to do. I'll put these two together. There's bed and breakfast and guest houses. They're pretty similar. A bed and breakfast usually means somebody actually lives, like it's literally their house and they're renting out some of the rooms and you do get breakfast. So usually there's somebody on site all the time. A guest house is literally just like a house or an apartment where they may be renting out other rooms, but usually don't get breakfast associated with it. And the person may not actually be there the whole time. So, you meet them, you get the key, you pay your money, and then they go away and you're just there with the other guests. There's lots and lots of guest houses. Some of them are really, really nice. You'll see them all over Britain, but even all over Edinburgh. And again, they're usually literally just a house or a flat where they're renting out rooms. This is a bed and breakfast. Again, very similar types of things. Bed and breakfast, again, a little bit more of a production. They're really nice. They're kind of a neat option, especially if you're going out of Edinburgh. There's something to think about. Again, they're just literally old homes that they're renting out individual rooms. These don't always have en suite. Sometimes they do, but not always. So this is one of the ones where you do need to, if that matters to you, this is one of the ones you need to be paying attention to, the en suite. If you're going to rent a hostel, again, we're staying at a hostel, but for us, it's more like a hotel. Again, private rooms, 2 people to a room, private bathrooms, right? Just like a hotel. But most of the time at hostels, you're renting a bed in a bigger room with other people. I'm not a big fan of hostels. I mean, they're really safe. Usually they're very common over there. We don't tend to do them over here. There's nothing wrong with them. I've done them. And sometimes they're a good, cheap option. They're just not my thing. I'm very private. So that's just me. So again, remember, if you want to have your own space, remember, rent a room versus renting a bed. Sometimes they'll say 30 pounds for a bed. And you're like, great. And you don't think, oh, that's me with a bunch of other people. And again, is it a single room or is it a shared room? Because you can sometimes get your own little room. They tend to cost more, of course. This is one I've actually stayed at. I've actually stayed with students. We had an issue one time years ago, my very first time in Scotland with students, and the trains literally didn't run one night. We were trying to get back to Glasgow where we were staying and we couldn't. So we literally had to stay at the hostel, and it actually was pretty nice, but we did share a room with a bunch of other people and it was weird, but it's a nice, safe one. And again, this is often what a hostel looks like. You're literally renting a bed with other people. For a lot of people, it's fun. You get old people, young people. They do kind of cater more towards like backpackers. A lot of it's a little bit more about partying sometimes. Again, at my age, this is a nightmare situation. I don't want to be in a room with a bunch of other people, but some of you may not matter. Again, I'm not recommending any particular place. I don't be responsible if you go to one of these places and you have a terrible experience, but there are some around. And again, kind of check out the websites if you are thinking about doing them. Some you can kind of get a sense of them even from the reviews. Are they catering more towards like people who are drinking and partying? Stay away from those versus people who are serious travelers. And again, where we're staying is super, super safe. And there are people renting beds in other, not ours, but in other rooms. So you'll see a lot of these kind of travelers, and you'll see people who are 80 years old and people who are 20 years old doing this. It is very common over there. And the other option is actually just renting a flat. Now, if you're doing one night, that's not an option. It's too expensive and most require a few days. But if you're planning to stay a week, especially some of you who are doing with families, consider renting an apartment, which they call flats. My family and I do this all the time. You get more room, you get kitchens and bathrooms, you get really cool locations. It is something to think about if you're staying more than a day or two. Again, day or two, it's just not financially feasible, but if you're staying several days, especially with other people, it actually is going to wind up being cheaper than a hotel. And again, it's literally you rent an apartment, and a lot of them are pretty nice. It's, they're pretty basic usually, but a lot of them are amazingly nice. So again, I want to show you some maps for anybody, again, if anybody who's still watching. But again, this is just Google Maps. Showing, I just typed in Edinburgh, Scotland, clicked on maps, and it gives you this live map. And again, I know this doesn't mean a lot to you because you haven't been to Edinburgh yet, but this is essentially the Edinburgh area, the broader area. Over to the right, I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but over to the right, you see it says Edinburgh Airport. And you see where there are, and this is showing hotels. So that's not a bad place to stay if you're just doing a night or two and you're trying to just get back home and you just need an extra day. But you can see it's a little distance from where all the other hotels are. Where you see that cluster of hotels, that's Old Town and New Town. Before I show you the next map, one thing that's not bad to do to look for a hotel is just go to Google Maps and just click on hotels, and it will show you all the hotels. And if you click on them, it'll actually take you right to that hotel's website. So using Google Maps is actually sometimes a nice way to find hotels. This is the same map without the hotels on it. So again, you can see the airport over to on the left hand of the screen. Where it says Edinburgh really big, that's basically Old Town and New Town. And where we're staying is just above where it says Edinburgh on this map, between Edinburgh and Leith, which is a little further up. That's really the area you're going to be looking at in that area. I've zoomed in a little bit more so you can see Old Town. You can see where it says the castle and all that. In fact, they even list Ibis Hotel, which I showed you a picture of. And then a little above that, it says Edinburgh New Town. And again, where we're staying, if you see where Edinburgh is, and then it says Leith Street, and then you keep going, it says A900. It's right along that street where we're staying. In fact, it's just a little beyond the A900 is where we're staying, which is about a 10-minute walk to Old Town. So any of this area is a nice, safe place to stay. And you'll find plenty of hotels. And when you do searches, just filter it to Old Town or New Town or Edinburgh City Center, and this is what you're looking at. But again, if you go to Google and you just tell it, like I use that same map and I just clicked on hotels, you can see all the hotel options in Old Town and New Town. And you can see there's a whole bunch of options here. Some are really expensive. I see 500. I know there's at least an 800 one in here I saw earlier, but there's also some really cheap. I see a $40 one. Don't do that. There's even I think there's a $39 towards the top. I actually clicked on it to see what it looked like. Yeah, you don't want to do the $39 one. That looks a little scary. There's a $58 one, and that's actually where we're staying. And of course, if you click on it, it shows you what it is, and it also shows you all the websites that you can click on to, like Expedia and all that. I think where we're staying, because a lot of you are like, oh, I'll just stay where we're staying, a day before. I think they're booked. Like we've already booked our rooms for next year. Already booked them. We're already, because we have to. They fill up that quickly. It really is that. It's a basic place, but it's really nice and safe, and everyone likes it. So we have to book it super early, otherwise we don't get a space. So you're more likely not going to get a place where we're staying. You might get a bed, but you probably have to go somewhere else. So a couple of sites to be looking at. I know there's one student that's looking to stay that one Friday night, June 2nd. So I just use that as my date. I just use that for everything. Make sure you do sort by lowest to high, because they'll always offer you the most expensive places first. And you notice it does have a map. You can click on the map, and it's basically a Google map, so you can kind of get a sense of where the place is located. Hotels.com is a good one. VRBO is one for renting apartments. And again, that has a map where you can click on it. You can filter it for certain parts of town. Holiday lettings. Instead of vacation, they say holiday. Instead of renting, they say letting. The holiday lettings is another one that has flats. Again, this is probably only for those who are staying several days. And this one looks like doesn't have a whole lot of options. Flipkey's another one. Again, I use the same dates for all of these. Airbnb, of course, which is common over here. I think that's the one my wife uses a lot. And again, you can see one of them $38 a night. But that looks like it's a room, and I bet you it's a room with a shared bathroom down the hall, if I had to guess. So again, notice they say private room. But more likely, again, look at the details. I bet they're not en suite. Who knows? And a lot of times this is where you literally are in a house with other people. You may not want that, but and then of course there's things like booking.com. You can look at hostels, but you can tell it just give you hotels if you don't want to do hostels. Expedia, that's what I use the most. Again, you can filter it for New Town or Old Town. You can look on the map and it shows you where. There's lots and lots of ways to book places. This is on Expedia, looking at New Town and Old Town. And again, you can see the range of prices. They're a little high here, actually. I'm not seeing a whole lot of cheap places here. I do see 126, but 442, 859. So some of these are really up there. Those are the fancy ones. But anywhere for a hotel room, it's probably going to run you $80 to about $200. That's going to be your range for a good hotel room. Which is pretty, here it's usually about $100 a night, right? For a Holiday Inn regular room. It's going to be the same there, maybe a slight bit higher. So just know if you're going to be booking a hotel room, that's going to be your range probably is anywhere from $80 on the really cheap end to about $200. Anything beyond that, you don't need to be booking. That's just too fancy. And again, I zoomed out just a little bit, but again, now we're getting outside of Edinburgh. But anyway, okay, that's enough. I'm actually... that's getting into another PowerPoint. So that's it. If you stuck around this long, I just wanted to give you some options of how to look for places. Again, you probably knew all that already, but the biggest thing is just making sure you're booking the right location, Edinburgh, but more specifically, either the airport or Old Town, New Town, or Edinburgh City Center, as it's sometimes called. Hope that helped. Hope that didn't confuse people. I'm still looking forward to seeing you guys. Hopefully some of you joined the Facebook page and we can communicate more in there as well. Other than that, I may have another video up later. Don't be afraid to email me, and I will see you guys in a couple of weeks. Okay, bye.